Hi everyone, and welcome to week 8. My goodness, we are coming to the end. It seems like it's taken a while, but definitely been long term. And I'm sure this time of the term everybody's kind of feeling it. So I sympathize. But we're almost there, and good news that you have your very last research review this week coming up, and your very last discussion forum. Both of these should be helpful in finishing the final project, which is I'm going to give some detailed information about today. Just to check in about your midterms, I did get those graded, and I think all of you are off to a good start and have a good framework for moving forward on your final project. I'll talk a little bit about how to transition that. And so part of doing that is going to be the team discussion this week. So I'm going to just click on that. So your team discussion this week is about policy and how that impacts reform. So I want you to really think about, you identified these problems of practice in your midterms. And this week I want you to, through your research in the text and just thinking about what you identified in your context as a problem, how does policy influence that? What are the things that are happening in terms of school policy, district policy, state, and even national policy in terms of what contributed to this problem or what is maybe already contributing to some solutions to the problem? And that will help you think as we go forward about what you're going to do for your final project and how you're going to develop that. So some of the questions you're going to answer this week is, first, describe what your problem of practice is and the solution. Most of you did a great job of really narrowing that down in your midterm. A couple people may need to really think more specifically about your context you're in right now and how and identify a particular issue. So, for example, if you were someone who was thinking about, integrating curriculum is pretty challenging. That's generic to a lot of most schools. So really, how does that show up in your context right now? And so you may have to, as you answer these, narrow your problem a little more. And many of you will have to really narrow your solution in that I want you to pick one or two focuses for the solution on things that can be attained or realistically implemented in the next year or so. So you don't have to actually do the implementation during this year, but you're going to plan for it, and that's what you're going to do in your final project. So as you respond to this, that might be what you need to do, is really think about the problem and the solution you want to focus in on for your final project. And then the other questions are, how does policy contribute to, influence the problem, limit solutions, or actually maybe support or promote certain solutions to the problem? Again, thinking about your school, district, regional, state, and national resources and policies. And how might these influence your solution and reform going forward? So that's the discussion. I don't think I put in here that you have to respond. I did not require that you respond to your peers for this one, but it might be helpful to look at other peers' problems and solutions and how they are addressing policy. It might give you some ideas as well about how policy would interact if you're struggling with that. Just one example of that might be at the school level. Let's say you're trying to integrate curriculum. And so at the school level, currently, let's say this is elementary, all the elementary teachers kind of do their own thing. Maybe you get together in groups and you plan some lessons, but they're really segmented. Like there's no project-based learning where you're integrating multiple curriculum. So that would be a school-wide policy, is that, you work in PLC groups, but you don't integrate. So moving forward, how will that influence the solution? Well, you may have to actually get the school to adopt new policies that allow for, students to learn in a different context. Maybe they spend more time in one classroom doing project-based learning while the other rooms operate the same moving forward, or maybe all the teachers decide that they're going to work on one project-based learning unit. So lots of different ways that policy can influence that. So that's how I want you to think about that. And that's how you'll actually incorporate it in your final project too. So hopefully that helps. So looking at the final project, this is attached to the Canvas assignment. And so you're going to want to get a good read of this, make sure you understand what the project is, start thinking about what you're doing and how it connects. So the overall task is to create an action plan that addresses a STEM problem in your context and provides for 1 or 2 solutions that can be implemented within a year's time. The implementation part would come after this. It's not part of you completing the project. So you're just doing the plan. Some things to think about that need to be incorporated is when you identify your problem, you have to have a clear understanding of why this problem is important to address. And that should be supported with evidence from either research or data from your context. And then you should be able to really define and describe practices that are currently in place that are going to be addressed. You're going to use scholarly work to support your reason for promoting change. That change is a possible solution or solutions. And then you have to really think about what kind of educational leadership is needed to help solve the problem. Leadership from you, but also who else might you need to involve in this plan and get support from or collaborate with. You'll need to identify what knowledge and resources are necessary to implement this plan, solve the problem, and then you're going to create the actual action plan. So the first part of this project is introducing the problem. And so that includes, again, identifying what problem you're going to address, why it's important, how it presents in your context. This includes things like, including demographic data, which many of you did about your school or the district that you work in, talking about what the resources are, who's in leadership positions, how all of that's going to contribute to both what the problem is and the solution you're proposing, what is known about this in terms of research and why it's an important problem to address, and then the action plan you're going to create. So you need to have specific objectives, and again, we're going to use the SMART format for that. So specific supported objectives that are measurable, attainable, relevant, and our time frame considerations are included. So how long is this going to take? You might want to consider what needs to be done in the short term and over the long term. And so this is a pretty developed action work plan for implementing at least one solution to your problem. You don't have to solve the whole problem. So let's say, again, we'll go back to the integrating curriculum if that was an idea. You may not have to fully integrate so that all your classrooms are teaching, all your teachers are teaching together, and you're doing only project-based, problem-based learning that's solving real-world problems. So maybe you start with, we're going to create a team that is going to collaborate to develop a unit that is problem-based, that the science, math, and language arts teachers are all going to contribute to this unit, and during this time we'll teach from a project base for 6 weeks where everybody's involved. Even that, maybe it's just the math and science teacher are going to integrate some curriculum over a week. where you both cover content that's relevant to a specific problem. So think about your context and what makes sense. And then outline specific goals for your plan, what you need to attain it, who needs to be involved, how much time it's going to take, and anything that you would need basically to achieve that. So how you're going to actually, what you're going to produce to demonstrate this is up to you. So I want you to approach this project as, okay, I know in my school I've been participating and I really want to continue to work on implementing a new library or incorporating new resources in our library that provide diverse STEM-related reading materials, right? So that if that is your project, then you could actually present, it could be a PowerPoint, it could be a professional development for other teachers on what are the new resources and how do you use them. How do we, maybe it's a proposal to write a grant together to get the money to support that. So thinking about how would you present this to your professionals in your setting. If you want to include a maker space, how do you advocate that? Maybe pretend like you're going to the school board and you need them to support this with funding. And so how would you write this up in order to present it? So the product is really up to you and how you're going to try to convince others in your setting of the need for the project, the reason the problem needs to be solved, and how you're going to implement solutions and whose support do you need to implement those. So maybe it's a PowerPoint, maybe it's a outline for some professional development for teachers, maybe it's a information page that outlines the action plan that just gives people information about the problem and the solutions. You get to decide, but it should definitely include references to resources and scholarly work that you've used to support the rationale for your project. So if any of that is confusing, or if you need additional help thinking through this, at the top of our Canvas page is opportunities to sign up for office hours. If those don't work, you can email me and we can get together and talk through your ideas. If you want to just make sure you're on the right track, or you want me to help you clarify how to produce something, happy to do that. Could be a video. You know your context best, so you know what it would take to maybe convince your colleagues, your principal, your district, your teachers, your PLC group of that this is a needed change and they're going to help you do it, or at least support you in doing it. So I look forward to seeing what you come up with, and I'll get some idea from your discussions this week. But that's it moving forward. Just the last thing is you do have just one more, I think it's one more assignment, weekly assignment next week, which is a connect the dots. And then you'll be done with weekly assignments, and you'll have the last couple weeks to really focus on this final project. There is a rubric. I would recommend that you take a look at that too, just to see what it includes and how it will be scored. That might help you nail down what to include in your project. So hope you have a good weekend. I'm looking forward to wrapping up the term with you, and I'll talk to you soon.